Today I'm going to talk to you from the topic of the breaking point of change. And for me, the breaking point of change is when I was sitting in a courtroom, shackled in an orange jumpsuit, and I had just heard the judge read off a 22-year sentence with 2 strikes. At that moment, reality had hit me. It had hit me smack dab in the face. And it was in that moment that it was a pause and it was a stop. And it was a long thought and process within the inside of me asking myself, what have you just done? You've just ruined your life. You're in your 20s and you've just been sentenced to a 22-year sentence with 2 strikes. The breaking point of change. Many of you hearing this message, many of you hearing these words may have not reached your breaking point. And some of you may have reached your breaking point. Some of you may be going through your breaking point right now or have just went through your breaking point. And this is a very important moment to start a new beginning. To start to build from the foundation up. To turn a new leaf. To start over. To do something new. As I sat in that courtroom and I listened to the judge read off each sentence. At that time, my wife was pregnant and she was sitting behind me with her mother and with my 2-year-old daughter. And as the judge read off the first 10 years, I heard a loud scream. And I looked back and they had walked out of the courtroom. And those was devastating moments of my life. That was devastating words that I had just heard the judge had read off to me. Up until that point, if I take you back to the things I was doing and how I was living in my life, it would have been an obvious no-brainer how I ended up in that situation and why I was currently sitting in that courtroom. I was living life aimlessly. I was waking up, my whole goal, my whole aspiration, everything I was doing, I was just trying to smoke some weed, hang out, and kick it. I mean, that was the just and the pattern of every day. Just living life aimlessly, thinking stuff was a big party, not even putting no thought into my future, not even putting no thought into the kids I have, into the family I have, into everything that consists of life. I'm talking about just walking through life, living aimlessly. And in that moment, the breaking point of reality has struck me. After they finished sentencing me, I remember it was a guy sitting next to me. And he was locked up too. He was incarcerated. And as they took us back down in the courtroom to the holding cells, this young man began to cry. And he said, "Dang, man, I can't believe they gave you all that time." And I just looked at him and I'm sitting there like, wow, this dude is crying for me, you know. And I was able to see the reality even in a more deeper fashion just off him crying and the impact of what had just happened, even though I had heard it myself. And I began to count up how much time that I was going to have to serve from this 22-year sentence. And I wasn't supposed to get out till I was 45 years old. And I had realized since they had gave me all this time that they was going to send me to a level 4, one of the most dangerous yards to be incarcerated in California. You know, a level 4 prison where it's real serious. It's real dangerous. Where people was doing life, where people got double life sentences. And I wondered, would I even be able to make it out of prison without getting in trouble in the confines of prison just off having to protect myself? And as they began to take me back to the county jail from the courthouse, I remember one of the officers asked me, he said, "Hey man, do you want me to put you in a cell by yourself? You want to be alone?" And I said, "No, I'm okay." But I had made a decision within myself within the next few months that I would never allow something like this to happen to me ever again. That I would never put myself in a situation like this where I was taken out of the equation of life ever again. And that was the breaking point of change. I began from that moment on, as I was incarcerated, to start a transformation of my life, to be rebirthed again, to make a renewing of myself, to come forth in a different manner, and to excel in a different manner. And I had made a decision within myself that whatever the cost was, whatever the sacrifice was, whatever needed to be done to make this change, I was willing to do. Because the breaking point of change had struck me. What is your breaking point? What is the breaking point of change to you? Where is the point in your life where you reach where enough is enough and you're done living in the current position or state that you find yourself in? You know, many different people that I was incarcerated with, many different people that I've counseled, many different people that I've, shared different fellowship with and group with. You know, one of the main topics or one of the main questions that always came to light or that came out is, where is the point and what is the point in which you are willing to say enough is enough? You know, as time went on in prison, I remember I ended up picking up a Bible. And I thought to myself, how do I know if I can trust the Bible? How do I know if this is real? You know, and I always believed in God. I always knew there was a God, you know, but I didn't have knowledge and understanding of who God really was, of the Bible or anything like that. And I had picked up this Bible and I remember asking God, I said, how do I know if this is your word? How do I know if this is the truth? You know, I got all these different people coming at me saying, you know, they got the truth, they got the way. Muslims saying the Quran is the way. Buddhists, you know, I have all these different paths and these different people coming at me saying all this different stuff. But how do I know I can trust this Bible? And that was the first question that sparked the transformation in the pathway of me turning to God. And I began to search that question out. I began to open myself to God and open myself to the things of God and the ideal of God. And over a period of years being incarcerated, of seeking this path, of going down this path, I began to see how God was moving instrumentally within my life and helping me bring about this change and bring about this real character development and transforming of my life. And you know, one of the first things that we begin to come across the first challenge that we begin to encounter is the transforming of this mind. You cannot live beyond your thought process. I'm going to say that again. You cannot live beyond your thought process and your belief system. Before anything changes, your belief system must be changed. Your thought process must be changed. The way you think, the way you react, the way you form ideals, the way you form imaginations, your whole pattern of understanding, of comprehending, of how you engage in this world and what we call reality must be changed. The mind is the navigation system. The way you think, the way you believe is the way you respond, the way you react, and how you conduct yourself in this reality. And as a result of that, the choices that you make are based upon that. And the more I begin to dive into the things of God, the more I begin to dive into the principles of the Bible and the transformation of my mind, the transformation of my heart, the more I begin to see how much of a need that was necessary for me to really bring about change. And I've come across a lot of people during that time that I was incarcerated. I've seen a lot of people leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back over and over and over again, because there was really never no breaking point of change. And see, the breaking point of change spreads across all grounds and all groups of people. Whatever category, whatever perspective, whatever position in life that you find yourself in, change always comes with a price. And one thing about change is change don't take checks. Change don't take credit cards. Change wants her money right now in order to dish out some results for you. This is not something you can put on credit. This is not something you can put on layaway. Change wants her payment right now in the form of discipline, in the form of self-inventory, in the form of exerting yourself and pressing yourself forward in order that you may bring about that change, that you may bring about that transformation, that you may bring about that new self and emerge as somebody different. You know, one of the most awesome things that helped me in my life, that helped bring about this transformation, that really guided me in this process and showed me the way, was God. I mean, through it all, I got to the point where I remember about 5 years into my incarceration sentence, and I just kept having all this good stuff happen to me. All this good stuff happened to me. And I remember thinking to myself, it was unusual for me to constantly have good stuff happen to me. And I was waiting for something bad to happen. I was thinking to myself, man, there's no way all this good stuff can keep happening. I don't know what's going on. This is weird. This don't feel right. I'm just waiting for something bad to happen to me. And I remember the Lord had impressed upon my heart that you've been planting. You've been sowing in a good fashion, in a good way. And now you're just reaping the benefits of planting and walking in those good seeds, of walking in the power and the wisdom of God. And just to get that understanding was a whole shift. Because for a great part of my life, I was constantly sowing into these bad things, sowing into these negative thoughts, sowing into these lies, sowing into this bad behavior, doing all this bad stuff. So for this bad stuff to come back to me, for all the seeds and the negativity and the stuff that I have been planting to come back to me, that's the reward, or that's the harvest of the things that I have been planting. And so that negativity, that type of atmosphere, that bad stuff, and the way I was living, I was used to that. I was lying and I was being lied to. I was stealing and getting stole from. I was robbing and being robbed. I was in poverty, and I was hanging around people in poverty. Not just poverty in money, poverty in sobriety, poverty in character development, poverty in virtue, poverty in wisdom, poverty in just learning how to be a person of integrity. I was lacking those virtues. I was lacking those characteristics. And so the quality of the life that I was producing was very low. And as I began from this breaking point of change, as I pressed into change, as I pressed into character development and developing into a new person, developing my thought process, becoming disciplined within my mind, learning to think a new way, learning to be kind, learning to be friendly so I can have friends, learning to be a person of integrity, learning to do the right thing when no one's around because it's the right thing. This transformation began to emanate out in a new way. And as I sowed into this new character development, this new person, and got these new results, I was receiving the harvest from the new character and the new person I was. And I began to see how people's countenance, people's attitudes, people's behavior, people's responses to me had changed, and even how people would look at me and view me. You know, one of the interesting things that we don't realize is people view you and treat you by the way you act. I want you to think about that for a minute. People view you and treat you by the way you act. Everyone is known by their ways. See, our mouth can say one thing, but our actions will always tell who we truly are. People can talk a real good one. They can say all these fancy and these awesome things, but all you have to do is watch a person. All you have to do is watch how they move, what they say, and what their actions do, and they'll tell you who they are in a heartbeat. I remember, as I was in this time of incarceration, I was on this character development. After I had changed to a certain point, I didn't even fit in within the prison system. I didn't fit in with the other people that were around. And that became evident to a lot of the free staff and a lot of the officers, a lot of the staff that was in there that wasn't incarcerated. They began to see the character development. They began to see the change. And I would have a lot of them ask me, they would say, "What are you doing here? Why are you here? Like, I don't understand. You don't seem like you belong here. How did you get here?" Several times I had different people come in to do different programs and to conduct different programs. And after we would conversate for a while and I would participate in the program and have interactions with people, they would put me to the side and they say, hey, Coleman, why are you here? How did you get here? And I tell them, the person you see now is not the person that first came here. But it was through the power of God. It was through the wisdom of God that the transformation was able to take place after I hit that breaking point. Many people that may hear this message, that may hear these words, you may be at that breaking point. And I want to share with you that beyond that breaking point, beyond that process, that journey of transformation, is your victory. It's your victory. Change is possible. But it has to come a point where you rise up, where you stand up, and you begin to make these decisions that allows you to move in the direction of change. That you take the time out, that you become diligent, that you become willing, that you make the sacrifices needed to walk on this path of change. And this is a day-to-day decision. You know, a lot of times we think that we're going to make this decision to change. We're going to make this decision to transform because we hit this breaking point. And you find out that this decision is made step by step and moment by moment. You make this choice every day. I still make the choice to stay on the path to change. Every second. And some of the greatest character developments, some of the greatest moments that you will find that really helped you and that is really instrumental and pivotal on the path and the journey of your change is right in the midst of your struggle. In the midst when you don't want to go and you make that decision to press forward. It's that moment that you put a new tool in your tool belt. It's that moment that you learn a new way of living, that you experience firsthand a new way of coming forth and behaving as a different person. And these are ultimately those steps that help us build this character, that help us build this confidence that we can live in change. You know, one of the interesting things that we find out is you actually build credit and confidence with yourself. Think about that for a minute. You actually build credit and confidence with yourself. You may think you can do it or believe you can't do it, and you may think you can't do it or believe you can't do it. But it's when you actually do it and you showed yourself that you can do it, that you build that credit with yourself, that you get a little bit stronger on this journey. After a while of being incarcerated, I had got to a point where I said, you know, I'm going to see if the Lord will bless me in getting out of this place early. And I began to form up a portfolio or a folder of all the things that I had achieved and the transformation that had taken place to see if I can get a government pardon to get up out the incarceration. And it was interesting along that path, all the things that I encountered and all the things I learned on the time of that journey. And, you know, I thought to myself, I know it's at least about, 4 or 5 staff member that I probably can get to write a letter for me. I felt like it was more, but when you're in that type of environment, just for the sheer fact that you have on an inmate suit and you're an inmate, you're looked down upon, even if your character shows different. And even if some of the people that don't look down upon you want to write a letter for you or, speak on your behalf in some type of way, because of the peer pressure of the majority of people that don't like inmates or don't like people incarcerated, put that pressure on those individuals, it's still hard for them to even speak on your behalf or get them to write a letter of recommendation. And so, I didn't have the idea when I had started off to get an officer to write a letter of recommendation. I thought that I would get some of the people that would come in to volunteer to write some letters of recommendation. And I remember the more and more I embarked on this journey and the encouragement that I was getting from one of the people that would come in and volunteer their time. And I remember as I began to start asking, the different people for the letters, and they was giving me the letters, and I had got up to 5 letters. I said, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can get a letter from one officer. That'll top it off. Because if the governor is able to see a letter from one officer, they know this is rare. They know this is unheard of. And I remember as I took that step of faith, that step to achieve what people said was undoable, I took that step to believe what people said was unbelievable. And I was able to get a letter from the officer. And then I said, well, dang, I got one. Let me see if the other one will do it. And long story short, it got to the point where I ended up with about 23 letters from staff members endorsing me to be released from the prison. And I remember how I was sharing with some of the different people I was coming across, you know, because a lot of people in there were making the same type of transformation. And they was wanting to get out and stuff. And I was sharing with them the stuff I was doing. And some of the other people that was hearing about it, they was saying, man, that ain't going to happen for you. They don't let people out of prison like that. You ain't getting out. That's never been done before. And I tell you, one of the greatest challenges you will come across is dealing with people that see you trying to achieve something or see you making the change. And because they can't see the change or the possibility within themselves, that they knock you down with negative words. And you know, the interesting thing is, a lot of times they're not even doing it on purpose. They're just speaking from their heart in their reality and trying to project that on you. And I came across so many people like this, man. And because of the power and the faith in God, I kept pressing forward. And I went through this process for over 2 years. And I remember the Lord allowed things to work out in such a way that I never thought they would work out that way. My release came through a way that I had never seen it coming. But all those naysayers, all those people that said, oh, this won't happen, this can't happen, this never been done before, that ain't gonna happen, all of that was proven wrong because I pressed forth in faith in God, and not just having the faith, but acted upon the faith and lived in this transformation. And I seen the victory come through. I seen the victory come through. Change is possible. Change can be done. Whatever situation you find yourself in, whatever position you find yourself in, whatever you find yourself out, if you want to change that position and change that place, you have to do something different. One of the most wisest things you will ever hear is, nothing changes until you change. Change doesn't come from the outside. Change emanates from the inside, and it permeates to the outside. Once you change the way you think, you change your belief system. Once you change your belief system, you change your thought process. When you change your thought process, you change your behavior. When you change your behavior, you change your habits. When you change your habits, you change your results. It's all choices. And every day that you make the decision to change, you have to continue to make that decision of change. You have to make it when it's easy. You have to make it when it's hard. You have to make it when you want to. You have to make it when you don't want to. That's the power of change. That's the price of change. It's sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to bring about this change? What are you willing to give up to bring about this change? How much have you lost because you haven't been willing to change. Change is possible. Transformation is possible. You just have to want it.